If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. For one, it's free. Two, there are a bunch of creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Not only that, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more places. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's really everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
How's it going, lovebirds? You're now listening to the podcast that brings you real relationship advice from real relationship experiences. I'm your host, Derek Brown Jr., and on today's episode of the Good Relationships Podcast, Season number 2, Episode 9, my guest is Sam Nowachek. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, I've actually wanted you on the podcast for some time. We met about a year ago, and I remember you gifting me opportunity to read 2 of your books.
Right.
And, at that point, I was like, I can tell you're smart. I can tell you're intelligent based off of your library. But I was like, it'd be pretty cool to have you on the podcast. So very thankful that you were able to come out today and be a guest.
Yeah, I'm glad to sit down and talk finally. It'd be fun.
For real. So can you tell us what you have going on right now?
I'm just kind of working, got out of school last year, so just trying to make money and live right now.
All right.
So, yeah.
All right.
That's about it.
and today's topic is general thoughts on building a healthy relationship. And I'll repeat that again. It's general thoughts on building a healthy relationship. And for the first time ever, we're just going to keep the conversation open. Sam is very smart, so I'm just going to keep it broad, and I'm just going to let him, divulge into whatever he wants to. And to start, my first question is, what are your thoughts on communication being the foundation of a healthy relationship?
I think that having an honest conversation and is something that I look for in a partner. I feel like having open communication is vital to the health of your relationship. It's like honesty as like the very cornerstone of anything you build with somebody seems to be just vital, because I think that having the ability to trust in somebody makes it more. It kind of creates like a shortcut or simplifies the world for you. Just because there's a lot of people who, when they speak, they're trying to like win points, or they're trying to impress you, or they're trying to, have you view them a certain way. But if you sit alone by yourself for any amount of time, you know that you're like deeply flawed in many ways. And everybody has that thought. But when you look at someone else and they're putting up this front, then it's kind of, you can never tell what's real. But if you know and you have somebody that you trust and they're always going to be real with you, even if it makes them look bad, especially, it's good to learn from what they're feeling and how their honest perception is. If that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, communicating what you need, communicating what you don't need, what you don't want, just communicating anything,
right,
and being honest, and not really putting on that face or that show, and trusting that your partner will understand and still love you no matter what, because you are communicating these things.
Right. Yeah, and I think especially in like the early phase of like any relationship, or when you're seeking like a partner, being honest to yourself for one thing, and being honest to them too, it can kind of weed out somebody you don't want to be around. So like if I'm putting up this front and that's what's making somebody like me, then when we get, if I'm seeking a long-term relationship, it's like, if I'm putting up a front, then do they like me or do they like this front
the
that
front.
yeah.
Right.
So it's like, well, if I'm honest and I know that they're honest and we're clicking, then that's genuine.
Yeah, you're being yourself. You're like, which is like one of the greatest goals of anybody seeking a relationship. It's like, can I find someone who can just love me for me and all that I am,
Right.
Not this person that I'm trying to be, because eventually that person that I'm trying to be or I'm acting like is going to fade, because eventually I'm going to be put into a position where I have to be myself around them.
Right. Yeah, because like it's hard to keep up a front for even just a day. But if this is like if you're seeking like a long-term relationship, it's like they're gonna find out. Like, I don't know how these people, like, you see these people on TV and they have like this secret double life, and it's like, like there's these, they like keep murders from their wife or something like that. Like, that takes an insane amount of energy.
Yesterday I heard a story from a guy, and I think he was he has a friend who's a trucker. Right. And he was telling me, I was actually getting my hair cut.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, man, I know a lot of truckers and people who have two families. Like a family wherever the train goes and a family wherever the train comes back. Or a truck, I mean. Yeah. So I'm like, man, and they don't know anything about each other. So I'm like, how can you mentally even do that?
Oh, man. I have no idea. I do not have that kind of energy to keep up alive for like any amount of time. So I don't know. I think also being honest makes it so much easier to keep your story straight. Because if you're like keeping up a front with anyone, it's like, oh, what did I tell this person if that's not who I truly am?
Right.
Oh God, that sounds exhausting.
No, it is actually exhausting.
Yeah.
Like it's not that, anyone couldn't be a player or something like that. It's just like, honestly, I think it takes way more energy to juggle multiple people than it does to focus on one. And then when you're focusing on that one person, you're putting your time and energy with them, you just get so much more out of it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's good for like growth too. Like if you're growing a relationship, I feel like some people are into like the chase aspect of like dating and stuff, which I guess that has its own thing, but
yeah, sure, it is like a phase. Everybody's gonna probably experience something like it.
Yeah, it seems like a very short-lived type of deal, but I don't know.
It seems exciting for sure. It sounds like very adventurous of someone to be able to do that.
I think people get kind of hooked on that feeling of like acceptance, at least at this base level. They're like, if I can pull this many girls, whatever, it's like, it's
or
like at least
guys. There's girls out here.
Yeah, for sure. That's just what I see is like, you're pulling all these girls. It's like, that has its own rewards, but I think if you're looking for like a stable long-term thing, you got to be, I don't know.
And you're more pro one woman.
Yeah, I think that's exhausting. I don't know. I can't keep up with all that. Like, one is more than plenty, so, like, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, I know we were talking a little bit about self-development and a little bit about how self-development and partner development or group development is a little bit of the same but different at the same time. So what are your thoughts on developing as an individual and, in a partnership with someone else?
Right. Okay. So I think mostly what I think about that is as it relates to people who go relationship to relationship, like, so if you're in like a long-term relationship, whatever, and then you guys break up, whatever, if you're someone who can't stay single and be happy for any certain amount of time, like you're like, I need somebody to fill that void, you have to kind of look at yourself and develop there, because there's a lot of time that like in your whole life you're going to be by yourself, or you're alone with your thoughts all the time. So I think that you have to you have to develop a personality of yourself, and otherwise, when you get it, like you see these people that jump relationship to relationship, and they kind of chameleon into whatever this person they're dating is like, if you're into somebody who rides motorcycles or whatever, you're like,
you're now all about motorcycles.
Yeah, I'm all about that now. And then you like switch up, like you're like, oh, I like jazz this week, but something like that. But I think that while you're in a relationship too, if you're all about this person and you don't have like a developed sense of self, then you're really kind of just like you're not interesting to your partner if you're just agreeing with whatever they are. So like you need somebody that's going to challenge you to become better, like develop. Like if I was going to be in a long-term relationship, I would want to gain something out of that, because there's like a lot of utility in having a different other person helping you grow, and you're hopefully helping them grow. But like you don't want somebody that like, I agree with what, like if I had a girlfriend that was like, I agree with everything you say, whatever, and you're like trying to avoid arguments by agreeing, like that just makes you like not really a person. You're like a mirror. Yeah. So it's like, why am I even dating? Well, I'll just date myself. Like, like I don't need a relationship. I'm just like, I'm talking to myself right now.
Yeah. And people really enjoy, and a lot of people would agree to disagree with me when I say this, but honestly, and I've seen this a lot, and I've studied a few relationships in my like time as a relationship sociologist, and it's like, I noticed that people actually enjoy debating with their significant other. They enjoy arguing. They enjoy the idea that you can win or lose and still have some kind of intimacy with someone else.
Right. I think you said like win or lose. I think an idea about that is, or how I view that is basically, you don't want to be, or from what I can tell, you wouldn't really want to be in a position where you're winning or losing fights with your significant other. You're like, we're trying to, and this is another thing that comes back to honesty, is like, we're coming together to figure out the solution to a problem. We're not trying to
tear the other down.
Yeah, and if it becomes like a personal attack, it's like, well, that's not helpful for them. They're going to resent you for attacking them personally, or even in a small way. So you want to make sure that you're just talking about the ideas. So if you have an argument about, I guess if it was like raising a kid or something like that, and you say, I would want to raise my kid traditionally one way, and your partner says, well, I have some disagreements with that. It's like, you don't say, oh, you're stupid because you were raised a different way. You say, well, I think it would be better to... You discuss ideas. You're not trying to, like, win points against them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not a battle. It's not, like, a competition. It's more so, like, we're doing this to...
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're more so doing it as a way to grow with each other. To, build something with these ideas that you guys are discussing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because, yeah.
Cool. That's
basically what I'm thinking. So
what ways have you, as an individual, focused on self-development?
I like to run a lot. I use exercises kind of like therapy. I like to read a lot. So books, anything that I think can help me maybe perceive the world in a different way that's more complete than the way I was already, seeing things. So different perspective. I don't know. I know that like you're incomplete and you're never going to be perfect, but like, right. But like if you can go through the world in a way that's path of not necessarily least resistance, but if you can make it so, because life's hard, and if you can make it easier on yourself by doing a little work, on yourself, you come through less obstacles, or you're more ready to take them on when they come at you, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, you're just talking about educating yourself.
Yeah.
And which is so key.
Yeah.
Especially, and that's honestly, hopefully what people gain from even listening to this podcast or any other podcast or reading any books, especially like, for me, like I'm in real estate, and it's like, if I didn't have that knowledge of real estate, if I didn't read any books or talk to anybody about it or educate myself, it would make real estate almost impossible for me. Not impossible, but
Right.
I would have a way more difficult time. So when it comes to life in general, I agree with you. Like, what can you read that will get you out of financial debt so that you don't worry about your finances?
Yeah.
Or what can you read that will help you increase your health so you're not focusing so much on your health in a negative way?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, so people, I'll just say myself, but I'm assuming people have this perception as well, as you know in what areas you're insecure. Like you could pretty much pick out, like, anything on one hand, you're just like, okay, I'm this, and this.
Right.
And if you just pick any of them, all the time you spend thinking about how insecure you are about this thing, if you can help it and you work on it, then you don't have to be insecure about it anymore. Or you can increase your competence, that you're not going against it blindly. You kind of have some awareness, and you're not so incomplete in that area. If that makes sense?
So, like, if there was one thing that, in terms of insecurities, like, what would you say is, like, one thing that someone could say, okay, I really should focus on this? Like, and I don't want you to have to say some of your insecurities, but if you could think of, like, one that could be, like, common amongst most people, especially when it comes to relationships,
Well, I would say one, just a general one, not specifically about relationship, but I do personal training, and so people who are insecure about their weight or the way they look or the way they're perceived because of the way they look, that's a big mental hurdle for people, and it's not something that isn't constantly on their mind. So, like, people are like, oh, I can't, it affects their behavior, because if you think about, like, if you're getting ready to go on a vacation or something like this, and you're insecure about the way you look, you're like, I'm going to avoid these places. I'm not going to have fun on the beach or whatever. You change your behavior because of the things that you're insecure about. So if you spent a fraction of the time you are being insecure about it as in a way where you're learning about it and you're doing something about it, then you take away, it changes your whole perception on life. Like, your outlook on life is different because your behavior is changed because of your perception of yourself. So if you can pinpoint one thing and work on it so that it's not negatively impacting you every day, then you can work on something else. And it's not like, so I am a fan of Jordan Peterson, and he talks about this thing, these myths, and there's the myth of the Hydra is like, you have this 3-headed monster, and when you cut off one head, 3 more grow in its place. So it's like, you take, you kill off this thing. It's like, oh, I'm insecure about the way I look. You work on it, and then once you're confident in that, then another issue pops up. Something you didn't even know was there, but now you're insecure about this instead. But if that makes sense, analogy makes sense, it's kind of like...
I just want you to keep elaborating on that, because you're saying a lot of good things that people aren't really aware of, I mean, just a simple fact that if a person is changing their habits based off of a mental hurdle, and it has to do with something like their weight or something like that, like that to me says, like, okay, we're on vacation, and I'm not able to fully experience this vacation.
Yeah.
So how can you fully experience that and reach that point of, okay, I feel happy in this moment, if you're mentally... anxious about what other people are thinking, and it could be just simply like, hey, I need to feel comfortable enough with myself to be able to work on this thing that I am feeling like is a hurdle for myself. And if I break that down, how many other things will that positive, thoughts and
right.
Yeah.
There was one thing I heard, I forget who it was from. I think it was some minister. I don't know. But I think it was on like a podcast or something like that. But he was talking about how he was like drug addict, homeless, whatever. And he became, or he went through all these steps, whatever. He was fixing problems, and then like new ones came up, and he said, now he's a minister, and he's like, I kind of perceive myself more, or like I have more sins now, but I think it's, this is like all self-perception, but it's like being aware of your shortcomings doesn't make them go away. It just makes you, I think, more ready to deal with them. So like if you're a drug addict or something like that, and you're always high, or you're not thinking about anything, you're not thinking about betting yourself, you don't see yourself as a bad person. You're just kind of going through motions. But if you're trying to constantly better yourself, you do see your shortcomings. But that doesn't mean that you specifically have more of them. It's just you're aware of them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're just more aware of those things, but it doesn't mean that there's a lot more of them, or that you're really bad, or that you're in a bad place.
Mm-hmm. You might be making forward progress in your life,
but it may seem like you're
you're
in a bad place, but you're just more aware of these bad things.
Right.
Which, like you said, like the fact that you're aware means that you're able to dissect it. You're able to break it down. You're able to hopefully find a solution for it.
Right.
And then you'll gain understanding, like, okay, I know that I am making progress forward. And now I know that I'm getting out of it. And now I know that this is no longer a insecurity, or this is an insecurity that I'm able to, handle now. I'm able to deal with. So, that's really valuable, because there's so many insecurities that can take years.
Yeah. And some people have stuff that they never get over, and they're like always battling it. But struggling with something is better than not trying. I think there was something else I heard where if you kind of, I guess this is, well, let me see how I want to say this. So if you can kind of give your life meaning, you can say, people who are cynical or whatever say life is meaningless or whatever, and then if you take that assumption, then you can do whatever you want and you don't have repercussions for it. But if you decide to say, well, life does have some meaning, or you can assign, or not assign the meaning to it, but like you find what is meaningful to you, and then your actions have consequences. But if you go through the presumption that life is meaningless, then your actions don't have consequences, and there's some value to that, because it's like, well, nothing matters, I can do whatever I want. And then, so that's like maybe the drug addict who's like, I don't have a problem, I don't need to fix anything. But the struggle in that is that nothing's meaningful. So you can do whatever you want, but nothing's meaningful to you. So I guess that could be a defense mechanism for some people, but
and you're just talking about like holding yourself accountable in a sense of like. And I honestly, I was thinking about that today. I was talking to a friend of mine, and it was just along the same lines. It's like, well, what does that mean in terms of making life decisions? You know, because everyone has that thought, like, did I make the right decision? It's like, well, some people feel like it doesn't matter what decision I make. So it's like, well, if that's the case, if you're saying, well, did I make the right decision? That means you're going to be more aware of any consequences that may come from that decision. Mm-hmm. And if you're like, oh, it doesn't matter what decision I make, then it doesn't matter if there's consequences or not. You're not even really aware of it. And some people enjoy life like that.
Yeah, but I think there's an emptiness to that. You know, if you do whatever you want, and I don't know. I think there's this one thing that I actually read recently that I think is pretty interesting. If you think maybe even we could roll it back in a little bit to like in terms of a relationship, but like so the word decide. I was told that the suffix, or it was explained that the suffix for that is side. So if you think of the word pesticide, homicide, genocide, whatever, that's to kill. And decide means decide isn't I'm picking this. So maybe in terms of a partner, it's not saying I'm deciding that I want to be with this person. It's side as in I'm killing off all my other potential options. Mm-hmm. This is who I'm not picking this person. I'm killing off all the other options, and this is what's left. Is how I interpreted it, and I think that's kind of a interesting way to frame that word. I think it's important to think about, like, I don't know, the way language is formed your perception, because I think that it was just really interesting to me, I guess.
No, I thought that was really interesting. That was the first time I've heard it described that way.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're talking about if we were to bring it back into relationships, it's like if we were to go back to that example of people having multiple partners.
Right.
You know, and then they somehow are like set on this one partner. Mm-hmm. It's like you said, like they're kind of just deciding to let go of those other partners.
You're right.
So.
Yeah. And that's like the classic, you get like, I just know like a guy, I'm talking to a bunch of girls or whatever, and then they're like, so what are we? Right. That whole thing is like, I don't want to decide. I don't want to kill off my other options yet, so I'm going to just keep it vague.
No, that's very valuable. That's very valuable.
Yeah.
Okay, so my final general topic is, what have you recognized as a reason for why some relationships fail?
Let me think here. I think, I always go back to the thing that's the most important to me is truthful, honest conversation, communication, and having someone you can trust in. But also, like I said earlier, is like if they're not willing to grow, or if they're, you know, if you're honest from the beginning, then you can kind of glean what that person is like. And if you're honest with yourself and honest with them, you know, or you will be able to tell how compatible you are pretty quickly, like at least to some degree. And then if you're honest, if you're both honest, then if it doesn't work out, then it's not as hurtful because you know, well, this just didn't work between us. All right? Like, there's tons of people, and not everybody is for everybody else.
Right.
Like, you're just trying to find your person or whatever, and that, if that's not who it is, then that saves you a lot of time, too. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you're honest with me and you don't like me, and you tell me you don't like me, or something like that, then good for me, because I just saved all that time trying to be somebody I'm not, to impress somebody I don't care about, or something like that. You know?
Yeah.
I think...
And the cool thing about that is, like, I mean, you got to understand that if that person is not the right person for you, then that just means that there is someone better for you. You know, that means that there is that right person for you. Right. So that's something to be excited about and not so upset about when you're getting out of these relationships or you realize they're not working because you guys just don't have that compatibility. So, I always think that's the exciting part. It's like, well, as you're learning that you're not compatible with some people, you're discovering so much more about yourself and the things that you do want and actually desire in a partner.
Right.
So,
yeah, I agree with that completely. For sure.
Yeah, no, there's so much to communication and just being honest in general. But I need to ask you, why do you think it's so tough for people to just be honest?
Oh boy. I think. Well, if you're not if you're not talking to somebody who's like socially unhinged, I guess there's a want to be liked, and with people who just do like dip their feet into short-term relationships or just are in the game, they don't maybe want to be honest because they're afraid of being alone or something like that. There's another thing that I've noticed from listening to people and like older adults when they talk about their relationship or whatever. It seems like a lot of them do like to win points against their partners, and there's something to it's kind of like messed up, at least in my perception. I don't like this, but having a superiority over your partner, being like, oh, my husband's so dumb, whatever, he did this, and this, and then you can complain to your friends. And there's like kind of, if somebody plays the martyr, they're like, oh, I'm just with this man who doesn't know anything, and I'm just woe is me or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. Or they like to be superior in some way, which I think is kind of a waste of your own time too, because the time you spend trying to gain points with your friends or against your spouse or partner or whatever is time you could be spending with somebody who is compatible and on the same level as you. So you shouldn't be above your partner and they shouldn't be above you. Like, you can learn from each other. And I think like when you're both on the same page, that's where any growth comes from. Because if anybody is like, if you're like dating somebody that's way smarter than you or way better than you at something that you care about, then they're going to get bored of you quick. So why would they hang out with you? And if you were the same way, or if you were better and smarter than this other person, then it's like you're going to get bored of them or annoyed with them. So it's like you got to be on the same playing field, as far as I can tell.
I completely agree.
Yeah. That's just what I think. I don't know if I don't remember exactly the question, but I kind of just ranted on that.
No, that was really good. I mean, I would say you answered the question. It was just simply along the lines of why some relationships may fail.
Right.
Which I feel like that's a big part of it,
mm-hmm.
And also think that if you're able to be honest, I don't know why it's so tough with some people, but if you're able to do that, and like you said, if you're able to just be on some kind of same page, like have some balance, not try to win points, I feel like you can go really far. You can go as far as you want to. Mm-hmm. You can go as far as you guys want to. If you guys want to do the long-term marriage, family, if you guys are on the same page and that's what you want, you can do that together as long as you're being honest, transparent, and communicating that. Mm-hmm. And if either one of you doesn't want that one thing, then it's not going to work, because it's not impossible, but if one person wants a long-term relationship and the other one wants to be a player and they want a short-term thing,
right?
How can that possibly even sound? That doesn't even sound healthy.
Oh, no, yeah, no.
It's not even... And even if they're hiding that from you, like the fact that they're hiding it, even if you didn't know they were trying to be short-term and they were communicating to you, like, I want long-term this, so I really want to be with you forever. It's like, there's no way that their communication would line up with their actions, because at the end of the day, no matter what you're saying, your actions have to be the foundation of that.
Definitely. Yeah, that's insightful.
Right. You know, like, that's why I don't really get how, I mean, everyone's been played before in some manner. Yeah. But it's like, it's kind of interesting though, because once you kind of just step outside of your emotions, mm-hmm. then you're looking at the situation as a whole. It's like, okay, you're saying one thing and your actions are doing something else.
Right. So. Oh man, I had something and I lost it. I think that, back to what you said, let me try to remember. God, I forget. I'm sorry.
You got good, man. Take your time.
What was the last question you asked? Sorry.
So like the last point.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that a reason that it might be hard for people to be honest is what you just said, is that everybody's been played before. So it might be a fear of being vulnerable with this specific person or with anybody, because people put up walls about, like, you know, I was myself. Like I was myself with this person. I was all of me, and they didn't want me.
Right.
Or they played me, and so it's kind of like a vicious cycle. But you got to be like, this is how I am. This is how I'm going to be. And then if you're not into that or you're playing me, then that's on you. But like, maybe, I mean, so you can reflect on your past relationships if you have these walls up, and it's like, there's got to be something I did, maybe this person's just an asshole and they played me. But if it happened, you know, play me once, shame on you, fool me twice, whatever, that whole thing, is like, if this keeps happening to you, maybe you should kind of take a look back at, one, the people you attract and how you were acting during this whole relationship. So there's clues in there about the way you acted that made this certain person act this way towards you.
Yeah, and that's a part of being, like, honest with yourself too, because a lot of people say they don't want these situations, and then, like, in their mind it's like, come on, man, what's really going on?
Yeah,
like, not everyone is oblivious to,
like, you know? And that might be something that you're hiding in yourself, that you're like, oh, I know exactly why they played me, but I'm gonna make them look out to be the asshole, because it's like, oh, dude, you know what you did. I know what you did.
Man, I tell you what, I it's so funny because I experienced a lot in the past, and it's like, you can't really get around it, because people are people, and they're gonna have their reasons for why they do certain things. And though it does not make any sense sometimes, it's like, all you can do is, you know, live and grow from it.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing of being confident in yourself, is like, or not confident, but comfortable at least being yourself, is like, if this person leaves me or whatever, something happens, I am, again, by myself. I gotta have something that keeps me going, and I have to have an identity of my own that is like, you know, you're not going to be soul crushed every time somebody leaves you, because that's just how life is. So it's like, just make yourself somebody worth dating, then you'll probably get a date. I don't know.
And if, you know, that person isn't coming along, date yourself.
Yeah, dude, date yourself.
It's cheaper.
Date your mirror.
You know, it's way less expensive. You enjoy every part of it because you're doing exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know, and what I'm really saying, you know, all jokes aside, is like, discover who you are, invest in yourself, learn what you want to do, to figure out what you want to do in life. Like, figure out what kind of person you want to be. You know, make a list of some things. Figure out where you want to travel to. Figure out what kind of person you do see yourself being with. And, you know, start knocking that list down, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Do you have any last tips for the lovebirds?
Just be true to yourself. That's all I got to say.
Hey, be true to yourself. All right. Thank you, as always, lovebirds, for listening. Thank you, Sam, for being a guest. I appreciate you and your time.
For sure. Fun.
And as always, stay blessed, not stressed.